You think seniors living alone only survived on frozen dinners and canned soup? Think again. For decades, older Americans stretched pennies into nourishing meals that took minutes to prepare and cost almost nothing. Let's dig into 30 cheap vintage 10-minute dinners for seniors living alone. Milk toast was the quiet companion of countless evenings spent alone, a dish so simple it seemed too humble to call dinner. Yet for seniors watching every penny during the 1950s and 60s, this warm bowl delivered exactly what tired bodies needed. Stale bread was never wasted in those kitchens where thrift meant survival. Slices were toasted lightly, placed in a shallow bowl, and covered with warm milk heated with butter and a pinch of salt. The bread softened into something between solid and liquid, easy to eat for those with dental troubles or diminished appetites. Some added sugar or cinnamon when sweetness was needed. The cost was negligible since milk and bread were pantry constants, and preparation took barely 5 minutes. Milk toast carried memories of childhood sickbeds and mothers tending fevered children. For seniors eating alone, this bowl meant warmth without fuss and nourishment without pretense. Creamed eggs on toast transformed breakfast ingredients into satisfying supper that cost almost nothing and came together in under 10 minutes. Seniors who survived the Depression understood that eggs were among the most affordable proteins, stretching further when combined with simple white sauce. The preparation began with melting butter in a saucepan, whisking in flour until smooth, then slowly adding milk while stirring until thickened. Hard-boiled eggs, already prepared and waiting in the refrigerator, were chopped and folded into this creamy base with salt and pepper. The mixture was spooned over buttered toast while still warm. The result was rich, filling, and deceptively elegant for something made from such humble ingredients. This dish fed widows and widowers across America during decades when eating alone meant cooking economically but eating well. The eggs provided protein while the toast gave substance, and the sauce made everything feel like someone had taken care. Sardines on crackers represented pantry cooking at its most practical, requiring nothing more than opening a tin and arranging contents on whatever crackers were at hand. For seniors living alone during the 1960s and 70s, this combination offered complete protein and essential oils without any cooking whatsoever. The tiny fish came packed in oil, water, or mustard sauce depending on preference, and a single tin stretched across 2 meals when appetite was small. Saltine crackers were the traditional base, their neutral flavor providing contrast to the rich, briny fish. Some seniors added lemon juice or hot sauce to brighten flavors. Others mashed the sardines with a fork, creating a spread that distributed more evenly. The entire meal cost pennies and provided nutrients doctors recommended for aging bodies. Sardines on crackers were consumed at kitchen tables by people who understood that dignity in dining came from adequacy, not extravagance. Bread and milk bowl was perhaps the oldest and simplest supper in the American pantry, dating back centuries and persisting through every economic hardship. Seniors who remembered harder times often returned to this dish when cooking seemed too effortful and appetites had shrunk with age. The preparation required nothing more than tearing bread into pieces, placing them in a bowl, and pouring cold or warm milk over the top. Sugar was sprinkled according to taste, transforming the humble combination into something approaching dessert. Some preferred their bread and milk warm, heating the milk gently before pouring. Others liked it cold, especially during summer months. The bread softened quickly, becoming easy to eat with a spoon, gentle on sensitive stomachs and aging teeth. This was food stripped to its essence. For seniors eating alone, bread and milk represented self-sufficiency and comfort of familiar flavors, asking nothing and giving everything a tired body needed. Toast with bacon drippings carried the rich memory of breakfast into evening meals, using saved fat that thrifty households never discarded. During the 1940s through 70s, seniors understood that bacon grease collected in jars beside the stove was liquid gold for flavoring and spreading. A slice of bread was toasted until golden, then spread while warm with a thin layer of cooled drippings seasoned with salt from countless previous cookings. The fat melted slightly into warm bread, creating savory richness that satisfied hunger and stretched resources. Some seniors sprinkled their dripping toast with black pepper or topped it with tomato slices when gardens were producing. The flavor was deeply porky, slightly smoky, and wholly comforting to those who remembered when nothing edible was ever thrown away. This single slice often served as complete supper when appetites were small. Toast with bacon drippings represented waste-nothing kitchens where every ingredient served multiple purposes. Soft-boiled eggs with toast soldiers turned a simple egg into an interactive meal that brought small pleasure to solitary dining. Seniors who grew up with this British-influenced tradition continued preparing it well into later years, finding comfort in the familiar ritual. The egg was lowered gently into boiling water and cooked for exactly 3 to 4 minutes, producing set white and gloriously runny yolk. Meanwhile, toast was prepared and cut into narrow strips called soldiers, ready for dipping. The egg sat in a small cup, its top carefully removed to reveal golden liquid within. Each toast soldier was dipped into the yolk, emerging coated in rich goodness that made plain bread taste extraordinary. The meal cost almost nothing yet felt ceremonial, requiring attention that gave structure to evenings that might otherwise blur together. For seniors eating alone, the process of dipping and eating provided small entertainment alongside nourishment. Cottage cheese and canned fruit became staple supper for seniors who needed protein without cooking effort and welcomed sweetness without dessert guilt. This combination required nothing more than spooning cottage cheese onto a plate and arranging canned peach halves, pear slices, or fruit cocktail alongside. The curds provided protein and calcium, while fruit offered vitamins and comfort of something sweet. During the 1950s and 60s, this was considered health food, recommended by doctors for patients needing gentle nourishment. The cottage cheese came in different curd sizes according to preference, and canned fruit ranged from budget brands to premium varieties. Some seniors added cinnamon or honey when company feelings struck. The cost remained minimal, since both ingredients kept well and stretched across multiple meals. Cottage cheese and canned fruit represented the intersection of economy and nutrition that practical seniors navigated daily, providing satisfaction without demanding time or energy. Buttered noodles satisfied hunger with the simplest combination of starch, fat, and salt, asking nothing of the cook beyond boiling water. Seniors living alone during the 1960s and 70s kept boxes of egg noodles in their pantries for evenings when cooking felt like too much, but hunger insisted on attention. The noodles were boiled until tender, drained thoroughly, then returned to the warm pot where butter was added along with generous salt and pepper. The butter melted into warm pasta, coating each strand with glossy richness that tasted more indulgent than ingredients suggested. Some added dried parsley for color or grated cheese when budget allowed. The entire preparation took under 10 minutes and produced a bowl of comfort that filled empty stomachs without taxing limited energy. Buttered noodles were honest food that never pretended to be more than what they were. For seniors eating alone, this simple dish provided warmth on nights when elaborate cooking was impossible. Stewed tomatoes on toast brought garden flavor to supper tables using canned tomatoes that cost pennies and required almost no preparation. Seniors who had canned their own tomatoes during summer or purchased store brands during lean times understood this humble ingredient's versatility. The tomatoes were heated in a small saucepan with butter, salt, sugar, and sometimes torn bread pieces that thickened the liquid into something approaching sauce. This warm mixture was spooned over buttered toast that soaked up the juices gratefully. The combination provided vitamins, fiber, and comfort of something warm and savory. Some seniors added black pepper or Worcestershire sauce to deepen flavors. Others kept things simple, letting tomatoes speak for themselves. The dish appeared on tables across America during decades when making do meant making delicious from almost nothing. Stewed tomatoes on toast proved that a can of tomatoes and bread slice could become something worth sitting down to eat properly. Welsh rarebit in its quick version brought pub-style comfort to kitchen tables, requiring only cheese, milk, and toast to create something surprisingly sophisticated. Seniors who remembered this dish from earlier decades simplified the traditional recipe into something achievable in under 10 minutes. Sharp cheddar was grated and melted slowly in a small saucepan with a splash of milk, dash of Worcestershire sauce, and sometimes pinch of dry mustard. The mixture was stirred until smooth, then spooned generously over toast placed on a plate. The cheese sauce pooled around bread, creating a dish part soup and part sandwich, eaten with knife and fork. The flavors were bold and savory, the texture rich and comforting. For seniors eating alone, Welsh rarebit felt like treating yourself to something special without leaving home or spending much money. This dish transformed ordinary pantry ingredients into something that tasted like care and intention. Cinnamon toast delivered sweetness and warmth in under 5 minutes, becoming the default supper for seniors who craved comfort without complexity. The preparation was almost meditative. Bread was toasted until golden, then spread immediately with soft butter that melted into the warm surface. Sugar and cinnamon, pre-mixed in small jars kept near the stove, were sprinkled generously over the buttered surface. The heat caused the sugar to dissolve slightly, creating a thin, sweet crust that crackled between teeth. Some seniors placed their cinnamon toast under the broiler to caramelize the topping into something approaching candy. The aroma alone lifted spirits on difficult evenings. This was comfort food in its purest form, requiring nothing fancy and delivering everything needed. For widows and widowers eating alone during the 1950s and 60s, cinnamon toast meant dessert and dinner combined into one affordable, satisfying meal that tasted like childhood remembered. Peanut butter on crackers provided complete protein and staying power without requiring a single pot or pan. Seniors living on fixed incomes during the 1960s and 70s kept jars of peanut butter in their pantries as insurance against hunger. Saltines, graham crackers, or Ritz crackers served as the canvas for this thick, sticky spread that required some effort to eat, but rewarded patience with satisfaction. The peanut butter could be spread thin for economy, or thick for indulgence depending on the day's mood and the jar's remaining contents. Some seniors drizzled honey over their peanut butter crackers, or added sliced banana when fruit was available. The combination of fat, protein, and carbohydrate kept blood sugar stable through long evenings. This meal required no cooking, no cleanup beyond a knife wiped clean, and no particular skill. Peanut butter on crackers represented pure practicality, transformed into genuine sustenance for people who understood that simple did not mean inadequate. Hot cereal with butter transformed humble oatmeal or cream of wheat into something almost luxurious on cold evenings. Seniors who grew up during the Depression understood that hot cereal stretched further than almost any other food, filling stomachs for pennies per serving. The cereal was cooked according to package directions, usually with water when milk needed stretching, then transferred to a bowl where a generous pat of butter was added along with salt, rather than sugar. The butter melted into golden pools on the surface, adding richness that made plain grain taste almost decadent. Some seniors stirred everything together while others let the butter remain in patches, each spoonful offering different proportions of creamy and plain. This savory preparation was common among those who preferred evening meals without sweetness. Hot cereal with butter represented economy and comfort combined, asking almost nothing of the cook while delivering warmth on evenings when loneliness felt sharpest. Canned soup doctored with extras became an art form among seniors who understood that a simple can could become a proper meal with small additions. Campbell's tomato soup, cream of mushroom, or chicken noodle served as the base, but the magic happened in what came next. Leftover rice stretched cream soups into something more substantial. Crushed crackers thickened tomato soup while adding texture. A handful of frozen peas or a chopped hard-boiled egg transformed chicken noodle into something approaching homemade. Some seniors added a splash of milk to cream soups or a spoonful of butter to tomato. The entire preparation took under 10 minutes and produced a bowl of warmth that felt cared for rather than merely opened. For seniors eating alone, this small act of doctoring represented agency and creativity, turning industrial convenience into personal comfort. The soup might have started in a can, but it ended as something that tasted like someone had bothered to make it special. Cheese and crackers with apple slices assembled a complete supper without any cooking whatsoever, satisfying seniors who valued simplicity above all else. Sharp cheddar or American cheese was sliced from a block and arranged on a plate alongside saltines or wheat crackers. An apple, sliced into wedges and sometimes dipped in lemon juice to prevent browning, added freshness and fiber to the arrangement. The combination provided protein from cheese, carbohydrates from crackers, and vitamins from fruit in proportions that doctors would approve. This was particularly popular during summer months when heating the kitchen seemed unbearable, and appetites ran small anyway. The plate looked almost elegant despite requiring no skill beyond basic knife work. Seniors could eat at their own pace, assembling each bite according to preference. Cheese and crackers with apple represented the dignity of a composed plate rather than random grazing, turning simple ingredients into something that felt intentional and proper for people dining alone. Tomato soup with saltine crackers was perhaps the most iconic simple supper of the 20th century, warming generations of seniors through countless solitary evenings. The soup came from a can, usually Campbell's, diluted with milk for richness or water for economy, then heated in a small saucepan until steam rose from the surface. Saltines were crushed directly into the bowl or floated whole on top according to preference, their salt cutting through the soup's sweetness, while their texture provided something to chew. Some seniors added a pat of butter that melted into golden swirls on the red surface. Others sprinkled black pepper or stirred in a spoonful of rice left over from another meal. The entire preparation took 5 minutes and cost almost nothing, yet delivered comfort disproportionate to its simplicity. Tomato soup with saltines represented security itself for seniors who knew this meal would always be possible regardless of budget or energy levels. Open-faced cheese sandwiches melted under the broiler delivered satisfaction that seemed almost too easy, requiring only bread, cheese, and 2 minutes of attention. Seniors across America kept processed cheese slices or blocks of cheddar specifically for this purpose, knowing that hunger could be addressed quickly with this simple technique. Bread was placed on a baking sheet, topped with cheese sliced to cover the surface completely, then slid under the broiler until the cheese bubbled and browned at the edges. The transformation was nearly magical, turning cold ingredients into something hot, savory, and genuinely delicious. Some added tomato slices beneath the cheese or sprinkled paprika on top for color. The open-faced format meant one slice of bread did the work of two, stretching resources further. For seniors eating alone, this quick meal meant hot food without real cooking, melted cheese without fuss, and dinner on the table in the time it took to set a place. Poached eggs on toast offered elegance without effort, providing protein in its gentlest form for seniors with sensitive digestion or diminished appetites. The technique required only simmering water, a splash of vinegar to help the whites set, and careful timing. The egg was cracked into gently bubbling water and left undisturbed for 3 to 4 minutes until the white turned opaque while the yolk remained liquid gold inside. Lifted with a slotted spoon and placed on buttered toast, the poached egg became something almost restaurant-worthy. When the yolk was broken, it flowed across the toast like sauce, making each bite rich and satisfying. This was food that felt refined despite its humble ingredients, the kind of meal seniors remembered from diners and lunch counters of their younger years. Poached eggs on toast proved that eating alone did not mean eating carelessly, that simple food prepared with attention could still feel like proper dining. Rice with butter and soy sauce created a savory bowl of comfort using leftover rice that might otherwise go to waste. Seniors who cooked rice earlier in the week discovered that cold rice reheated beautifully when placed in a bowl with butter and steamed briefly or microwaved until warm. A generous splash of soy sauce was added, stirred through the grains until everything glistened with savory goodness. The butter provided richness, while the soy sauce delivered salt and umami depth that made plain rice taste almost exotic. Some seniors added a fried egg on top or sprinkled sesame seeds when the pantry allowed for small luxuries. The entire preparation took under 5 minutes and transformed what some might consider scraps into a meal worth anticipating. Rice with butter and soy sauce represented the wisdom of waste-nothing cooking while delivering flavors bold enough to satisfy even the loneliest evenings on their own terms. Corned beef hash from a can became a legitimate supper when fried crispy and served with toast, transforming convenience food into something approaching homemade. The hash was scooped from the can into a hot skillet greased with butter or bacon drippings, then pressed flat and left undisturbed until a brown crust formed on the bottom. Flipping required courage and a good spatula, but the reward was hash that was crispy outside and tender within. Some seniors topped their hash with a fried egg whose runny yolk became instant sauce. Others added ketchup or hot sauce for brightness. The entire preparation took under 10 minutes and provided protein, carbohydrates, and satisfaction in proportions that kept hunger away for hours. Corned beef hash represented the transformation possible when canned goods met proper technique, proving that even industrial food could become something worth serving yourself with dignity. Scrambled eggs with toast remained the eternal fallback for seniors who needed something hot and filling when nothing else appealed. The eggs were cracked into a bowl, beaten with a fork, and cooked slowly in butter over low heat while being stirred constantly with a wooden spoon. This gentle technique produced soft, creamy curds rather than rubbery sheets, transforming ordinary eggs into something almost luxurious. Salt and pepper were added at the end to prevent toughening, and the eggs were served immediately alongside buttered toast that caught any escaping bits. Some seniors added a splash of milk to the beaten eggs for extra tenderness, while others stirred in cheese during the final moments of cooking. The entire process took under 10 minutes and required only one pan and one bowl. Scrambled eggs with toast represented the most fundamental cooking skill, proof that even on the hardest days, a hot meal was possible with minimal effort and maximum comfort. Baked beans on toast crossed the Atlantic from British kitchens to become a staple supper for American seniors who appreciated its simplicity and satisfaction. A can of baked beans was heated in a small saucepan until bubbling, then spooned generously over thick slices of buttered toast. The beans' sweet tomato sauce soaked into the bread, creating a dish that was simultaneously crunchy and soft, savory and sweet. Some seniors added a dash of Worcestershire sauce or a sprinkle of grated cheese on top for extra richness. The meal provided protein from beans, carbohydrates from toast, and the comfort of something warm and filling. This was particularly popular among seniors who had served overseas during the war or who had British heritage in their family backgrounds. Baked beans on toast required nothing more than opening a can and making toast, yet delivered a complete meal that satisfied hunger and warmed spirits on solitary evenings. Grilled cheese sandwiches, made in a skillet, brought golden, melty comfort to kitchen tables without requiring any special equipment beyond a frying pan. 2 slices of bread were buttered on the outside, filled with cheese slices, and cooked slowly in a dry skillet until the bread turned golden brown and the cheese melted into stretchy strings. The technique required patience and medium-low heat to ensure the bread crisped without burning before the cheese had time to melt properly. Some seniors added a thin layer of mustard inside or pressed the sandwich with a spatula to ensure even contact with the pan. The result was crunchy, gooey, and deeply satisfying, delivering all the comfort of childhood in a form that never lost its appeal. Grilled cheese sandwiches cost almost nothing and took under 10 minutes, making them perfect for seniors who wanted hot food without fuss or extensive cleanup. Fried egg sandwiches stacked protein between bread in the quickest possible configuration, requiring only a skillet, an egg, and whatever bread was available. The egg was fried in butter until the edges turned lacy and crisp, while the yolk remained soft enough to run when bitten into. Placed between 2 slices of bread with salt, pepper, and perhaps a smear of mayonnaise or ketchup, this sandwich delivered satisfaction in under 5 minutes. Some seniors preferred their eggs over hard for easier eating, while others embraced the glorious mess of a runny yolk soaking into soft bread. The sandwich could be eaten standing at the counter or sitting properly at the table, adapting to whatever energy level the evening allowed. Fried egg sandwiches represented the simplest possible hot meal, proof that a single egg and 2 slices of bread could constitute a proper supper when prepared with care and consumed with gratitude. Instant mashed potatoes with gravy from a packet provided the comfort of homemade mashed potatoes without the peeling, boiling, and mashing that tired arms could no longer manage. The flakes were stirred into boiling water with butter and milk, transforming in seconds into something surprisingly close to the real thing that grandmothers had labored over for hours. Packet gravy was mixed separately, whisked into hot water until smooth and poured generously over the fluffy white mound. The combination was warm, filling, and deeply comforting, hitting all the satisfaction notes of a proper dinner without requiring more than 10 minutes of standing at the stove. Some seniors added a fried egg on top or stirred frozen peas into the potatoes for color and added nutrition. Instant mashed potatoes with gravy represented the modern convenience that allowed seniors to enjoy beloved comfort food even when energy and mobility had diminished with the passing years. Tuna salad on toast turned a humble can of fish into a complete supper that required no cooking beyond making toast and provided protein that aging bodies needed. The tuna was drained thoroughly and mixed with mayonnaise, a squeeze of lemon juice if available, and whatever additions the refrigerator offered, perhaps chopped celery for crunch, pickle relish for tang, or a sprinkle of onion for sharpness. This mixture was spooned generously onto toast that was still warm enough to slightly soften the bottom layer of tuna salad while keeping the top fresh and cool. The combination provided protein, carbohydrates, and enough substance to keep hunger satisfied through long evenings. Some seniors preferred their tuna salad cold on crackers during summer months, while others always wanted the warmth of toast beneath. Tuna salad on toast proved that simple pantry staples could create genuine satisfaction for seniors dining alone. Chicken noodle soup from a can with extra noodles stretched comfort food further by adding dried egg noodles to the simmering broth until it became something more substantial. The soup was poured into a saucepan, brought to a gentle simmer, and a generous handful of noodles was added to cook directly in the chicken-flavored liquid. As the noodles softened over several minutes, they absorbed the savory broth and doubled the substance of what had started as a rather thin soup. Some seniors added frozen peas, diced carrots, or leftover chicken during the last few minutes of cooking, turning convenience food into something approaching homemade. The result was thick, nourishing, and far more filling than the original can had promised. Chicken noodle soup with extra noodles represented the ingenuity of seniors who understood that small additions could transform adequacy into genuine abundance. Peanut butter and banana sandwiches combined protein and fresh fruit into something that tasted almost like dessert while providing genuine nutrition and lasting satisfaction. Bread was spread thickly with peanut butter on both slices, then layered with banana rounds cut thin enough to create complete coverage without making the sandwich too bulky to eat comfortably. Some seniors mashed the banana directly into the peanut butter for easier chewing, creating a smooth filling that spread like frosting. Others drizzled honey over the banana slices for extra sweetness that made the sandwich feel like a treat. The combination stuck to the ribs in ways that lighter foods simply could not, keeping blood sugar stable and hunger at bay for hours. This required no cooking whatsoever and could be assembled in under 5 minutes. Peanut butter and banana sandwiches brought simple joy to solitary suppers. Cream of wheat with brown sugar and butter offered warm comfort that slid down easily for seniors whose appetites or dental situations made other foods difficult to manage. The cereal was cooked according to package directions in a small saucepan, stirred constantly to prevent lumps from forming, then served in a bowl with a generous pat of butter melting in the center and brown sugar sprinkled across the pale surface. The butter created rich golden pools, while the brown sugar added sweetness with a hint of molasses depth that elevated the simple cereal. This was gentle food, easy to digest, and surprisingly filling despite its soft and yielding texture. Some seniors added a splash of cream or a handful of raisins plumped in hot water for variety. Cream of wheat represented the kind of simple nourishment that sustained seniors through quiet evenings when elaborate cooking was beyond consideration. Cheese toast under the broiler delivered melted satisfaction in under 5 minutes, becoming the reliable last resort supper for seniors who needed hot food immediately without any fuss. Bread was placed on a baking sheet, topped with cheese slices arranged carefully to cover every corner and edge, then slid under the broiler until bubbling, golden brown, and slightly crispy, where the cheese had caught the heat. The transformation happened quickly, requiring watchful attention to prevent burning, but the reward was always worth the brief vigilance. Some seniors sprinkled garlic powder, dried oregano, or paprika over the cheese, before broiling for extra flavor and color. The toast emerged hot enough to require a moment of cooling, the cheese stretchy and satisfying. For seniors eating alone, cheese toast proved that even the smallest effort could produce something warm, comforting, and genuinely worth eating. Ham and cheese biscuit sandwiches turned leftovers into a satisfying handheld meal that tasted like a weekend treat even on the busiest night. Flaky biscuits baked from a can or quickly mixed from scratch rose high in the oven while slices of baked ham warmed in a skillet. As soon as the biscuits were golden, they were split open and layered with the savory ham and slices of sharp cheddar or mild American cheese. A few minutes back in the warm oven melted the cheese into a gooey blanket that glued everything together. The salty ham, buttery biscuit, and rich cheese made a perfect combination that required no side dish and no long wait. For families coming home late, this sandwich was both supper and comfort, a way to turn yesterday's roast into tonight's fast feast. Children grabbed them hot from the tray, and the memory of that warm bite remains an echo of efficiency and home-style pleasure. Brandied peaches were the elegant preserved fruit that appeared in crystal compote dishes, their golden halves swimming in spiced syrup. Summer peaches were poached in sugar syrup infused with cinnamon, cloves, and generous amounts of brandy, then jarred and aged until Christmas. The peaches softened and absorbed the boozy syrup, becoming something more complex than fresh fruit could ever be. Served alongside ham or as dessert with cream, brandied peaches added sophistication to holiday tables, making them required planning. The best peaches came from August harvests, preserved specifically for December. The jars themselves were beautiful, often given as hostess gifts. The flavor balanced sweet fruit with warming spice and alcohol. Home canning has largely disappeared, taking brandied peaches with it. Those who remember them recall opening a jar saved since summer, tasting preserved sunshine on the darkest days of winter. Moravian cookies were paper-thin spice cookies that required rolling dough so delicate it nearly disappeared, a Christmas tradition from North Carolina's Moravian communities that spread across the South. The dough was dark with molasses and fragrant with ginger, cinnamon, cloves, and allspice, rolled impossibly thin on floured boards until you could almost see through it. Cookie cutters shaped the dough into stars, trees, animals, and angels before baking transformed them into crisp, lacy rounds that shattered with each bite. The cookies were so thin that a dozen weighed almost nothing, yet their flavor was concentrated and intense. Moravian bakers took pride in achieving maximum thinness. The thinner the cookie, the greater the skill. Families would spend entire December days rolling, cutting, and baking hundreds of cookies for gift tins and holiday platters. The tradition connected American Christmas tables to 18th century German settlers who brought their recipes and customs to the New World. Tomato rarebit was comfort poured over toast. Imagine a smooth, cheese-rich sauce flavored with tomato, butter, and a pinch of mustard. Simple, warm, and filling. It was a cousin to Welsh rarebit, but humbler, faster, and easier to love. The joy of cooking tucked it among its light suppers, promising a full meal made in minutes. It was cooked in one pan, whisked until glossy, then ladled over slices of buttered bread or crackers. The result was creamy and tangy, with a sharpness that cut through the richness of cheese. It fit perfectly into the rhythms of everyday life, something to make after work or to stretch what was left in the icebox. Even when times were tight, this dish brought a touch of luxury to the table. The smell of tomato and melted cheese was like comfort distilled. Every bite carried the warmth of an era when simplicity was both necessity and art. Mashed banana and mayo sandwiches might sound strange to modern ears, but back in the day, this sweet and tangy sandwich was a Southern staple that showed up in plenty of lunchboxes. You mashed up a ripe banana, spread it on soft sandwich bread, and added a swipe of mayonnaise. That was it. It was quick, cheap, and surprisingly filling. Families leaned on recipes like this when groceries were scarce and meals had to stretch. The banana added sweetness, the mayo gave it creaminess, and together they turned plain bread into a fast, satisfying lunch. You would find this sandwich scribbled in old community cookbooks, passed down at church picnics, or tucked into handwritten recipe boxes that lived in kitchen drawers. It might be forgotten now, but for plenty of folks growing up during hard times, this odd little sandwich was a reliable 10-minute fix when money was tight and hunger was knocking. Jellied chicken salad cups were the quirky, retro lunch you probably saw at your grandmother's house or flipped past in old homemaker guides. You made chicken salad, shredded chicken, mayo, celery, a little seasoning, and then set the whole thing in gelatin until it firmed up. It sounds strange now, but back then, this was peak luncheon presentation. You scooped the wobbly salad into lettuce leaves, added a sprig of parsley or a cherry tomato, and served it cold. It was light, chilled, and looked fancier than the ingredients actually were. These showed up at potlucks, garden parties, and quick family lunches when the oven stayed off and time was short. Gelatin molds made everything feel more polished, even when it came straight from leftovers and pantry basics. Old cookbooks loved recipes like this because they stretched food, required no cooking, and made lunch look impressive with barely any effort. It might feel out of place today, but jellied chicken salad cups were fast, filling, and weirdly fun when they first hit the table. Cornbread and pinto beans bowl turned leftover staples into a 10-minute dinner that warmed both stomach and spirit. Cold cornbread from the previous night was crumbled into wide bowls while a pot of pre-cooked pinto beans reheated on the stove with a splash of water and a pinch of chili powder. As the beans bubbled, their smoky scent filled the air, carrying memories of long simmering meals that once took hours. The hot beans were ladled over the cornbread, their broth soaking into every crumb until the bowl became a soft, savory stew. A drizzle of hot sauce or a spoonful of chopped onions added brightness, though many enjoyed it plain, letting the natural flavor of the beans and the sweet cornmeal shine. It was a dish of pure practicality, stretching yesterday's work into today's dinner without a single complaint. Quick to prepare and impossible to tire of, this simple bowl proved that good food is often nothing more than humble ingredients handled with care and eaten with gratitude. Water, gravy, and biscuits became Christmas breakfast when there was nothing else in the pantry. The gravy made from flour, fat, and water stretched to cover biscuits that were the only food remaining. Bacon drippings or lard was heated in a cast-iron skillet, flour stirred in until golden, then water added gradually until the mixture thickened into gravy. Salt and pepper were the only seasonings, and the gravy was ladled over biscuits that had been split open to catch every drop. The meal was filling if not festive, and families ate it knowing that even water gravy meant they had something for breakfast on Christmas morning. The dish represented the absolute bottom of poverty cooking, the meal when every other resource was exhausted. Yet even water gravy was served on the best plates at Christmas, because dignity mattered even when the budget didn't allow for more. Water gravy and biscuits proved that love could make any meal feel like celebration. Creamed spinach was the emerald green side dish that proved vegetables could be just as indulgent as any main course, its velvety texture and subtle flavor pleasing even spinach skeptics. Fresh spinach was washed thoroughly, wilted in butter, then combined with a rich bechamel sauce flavored with nutmeg and sometimes a touch of garlic. The finished dish was deep green and creamy, each bite smooth and satisfying. Steakhouses made creamed spinach famous, but home cooks recreated it for Christmas dinners when only the finest sides would do. The dish required fresh spinach. Frozen wouldn't achieve the same texture. And careful attention to the sauce. Families served it in small portions, understanding its richness. Creamed spinach represented the era's appreciation for technique over convenience, when vegetable dishes were crafted rather than simply steamed. It has largely disappeared from home cooking, surviving mainly in upscale restaurants. Japanese fruitcake had nothing to do with Japan. The name remains a mystery, but the cake itself was pure Southern Christmas tradition. 3 or 4 spice cake layers alternated with coconut-filled layers, the whole construction held together by a boiled white frosting, studded with fresh coconut and sometimes raisins. The spice layers were dark with cinnamon, allspice, cloves, and nutmeg, while the white layers stayed pale and tender. Between each layer went the filling, a cooked mixture of coconut, sugar, and sometimes crushed pineapple that added moisture and tropical sweetness. The finished cake was massive, often requiring a special stand to display properly at holiday gatherings. Slicing revealed the dramatic contrast between dark and light layers, each bite offering different flavors and textures. Grandmothers guarded their Japanese fruitcake recipes, passing them to daughters who continued the tradition. The cake required an entire day to assemble properly, but lasted through the holiday week. Fried bologna, sandwich with mustard, brought quick satisfaction to tired working families who needed a hot dinner without fuss. Thick slices of bologna were scored so they curled as they hit a sizzling cast-iron skillet, filling the kitchen with a smoky aroma that signaled something good was minutes away. While the bologna browned, slices of white bread were lightly toasted and brushed with butter for extra flavor. A generous swipe of yellow mustard added tang, and some cooks layered in thin slices of onion or a single leaf of crisp lettuce if they had it. The heat from the skillet gave the meat a crisp edge and a savory depth that transformed a humble cold cut into a hearty main course. Children loved the salty, slightly sweet taste and the way the sandwich stayed warm as they carried it to the table. Parents loved that dinner was ready before the evening news began. It was fast, filling, and cheap. Everything a working household needed at the end of a long day. Even today, one bite of that hot sandwich can summon memories of late nights, hard work, and the comfort of a meal that respected both time and appetite. Roast duck with orange sauce was the continental-inspired dish that sophisticated families served to demonstrate their worldly tastes. The duck was pricked all over to release fat, then roasted slowly until the skin turned impossibly crisp while the meat stayed moist. Orange sauce was made from scratch, combining fresh juice, zest, stock, and sometimes Grand Marnier into something bright that balanced the rich meat. The presentation was classic. Sliced duck breast fanned across plates, sauce drizzled artfully, orange segments providing color. This was aspirational cooking, inspired by French restaurants and Julia Child's television appearances. Duck required more skill than turkey or chicken, its higher fat content demanding different techniques. The dish represented cultural ambition, families embracing international cuisine as a mark of sophistication. Today, duck rarely appears on home Christmas tables, reserved for restaurants where few experience its former holiday glory. Cranberry conserve was the Christmas condiment that elevated turkey and ham beyond ordinary fare, a chunky preserve combining fresh cranberries with orange, nuts, and sometimes raisins. Unlike simple cranberry sauce from a can, conserve required cooking whole berries with sugar until they burst, then folding in orange zest, chopped walnuts, and diced apple for texture. The mixture was thick enough to hold its shape yet spreadable for biscuits. Families made conserve in large batches before Christmas, filling mason jars for gifts and storage. The flavor balanced tart cranberries with sweet orange and earthy walnuts, each spoonful offering different textures. Grandmothers served conserve in cut glass dishes, the deep ruby color glowing like jewels on the holiday table. The tradition transformed a simple berry into something worthy of celebration. Though cranberry sauce remains popular, the richer conserve has largely disappeared from modern tables. Glorified rice transformed leftover grain into a festive dessert salad that children begged for and adults secretly loved just as much. Cold-cooked rice was folded with crushed pineapple, miniature marshmallows, maraschino cherries, and whipped cream until it became unrecognizable from its humble origins. Some versions added chopped nuts or coconut for texture, while others kept the base simple. The dish needed thorough chilling, allowing flavors to meld and rice to soften in the creamy mixture. Served in crystal bowls, glorified rice looked almost bridal, pale and dotted with bright cherry red. The sweetness made it controversial as a side dish, yet families insisted it belonged alongside turkey and gravy. This was thrift elevated to celebration, using rice that might otherwise go to waste. Mothers passed down specific ratios, each family believing their version superior. Glorified rice represented an era when creativity with basics was celebrated, when making something from nothing was its own form of kitchen magic. Oyster stew was the Christmas Eve tradition that brought coastal flavors to holiday tables across America, even in landlocked states. Fresh oysters were gently poached in their own liquor with butter, cream, and just enough seasoning to enhance their briny sweetness. The stew was served in warmed bowls with oyster crackers floating on top, each spoonful delivering plump oysters in rich, silky broth. Families maintained this tradition from generations past, when oysters were abundant and affordable enough for working-class celebrations. The dish required restraint. Overcooking turned oysters rubbery. Too much seasoning masked their delicate flavor. Some families added celery or a touch of sherry, but purists insisted on simplicity. By the 1980s, oyster prices had risen and the tradition faded. Those who grew up with oyster stew Christmas Eves remember the ritual of shucking, the anticipation, and the briny warmth that meant the holiday had truly begun. Mayo and lettuce sandwiches were one of those simple, no-nonsense Depression-era meals that somehow filled you up when there was not much else to work with. You slapped some mayonnaise on soft sandwich bread, added a few crisp iceberg lettuce leaves, and called it lunch. That was it. It might sound plain today, but back when grocery shelves were bare and paychecks were stretched thin, this quick little meal showed up on a lot of kitchen tables. Families made do with what they had, and mayonnaise gave the sandwich some fat and flavor while lettuce added crunch and made it feel fresh. It was cheap, fast, and surprisingly satisfying when times were tough. You would see it scribbled onto old recipe cards or passed down through word of mouth as a quick lunch fix that cost next to nothing. These sandwiches are mostly forgotten now, but back then, they were a lifesaver that came together in under 10 minutes. Shrimp wiggle was one of those mid-century wonders that sounded playful but tasted like pure indulgence. Canned shrimp were folded into a quick cream sauce made with milk, butter, and flour, then brightened with a handful of green peas. It was served bubbling hot over saltine crackers or toast, ready in 10 minutes and perfect for company. The joy of cooking presented it as a pantry meal, proof that elegance could live in a can. The name alone made people smile, a hint that mealtime could still be fun even when rushed. The sauce shimmered pale pink, the shrimp tender and mild. It was a dish that combined thrift with theater, turning modest ingredients into something you would never call ordinary. The moment you broke through the creamy layer with your fork, steam carried the scent of butter and the sea. It was quick cooking at its finest, cheerful, comforting, and quietly clever. Cheddar and broccoli omelette made a hearty egg dinner with bright color and bold flavor in minutes. Eggs were whisked with a splash of milk and a pinch of black pepper, then poured into a hot skillet where butter foamed at the edges. Fresh or frozen broccoli florets steamed quickly in the microwave or in a small pan, keeping their green snap and gentle sweetness. As the eggs began to set, sharp cheddar cheese was scattered across the surface, releasing a nutty scent as it melted. The broccoli folded inside added texture and an earthy contrast to the creamy eggs. In less than 10 minutes, the omelet slid onto a plate, golden on the outside and gooey within. Served with toasted bread or a handful of greens, it offered both comfort and nourishment, proving that dinner can be simple, yet feel complete. This dish turned basic staples into a meal that pleased everyone at the table while leaving only one pan to wash, making it ideal for nights when time and patience were in short supply, but good food was still essential. Persimmon pudding was the Christmas dessert that depended entirely on finding perfectly ripe wild persimmons, a fruit that rewarded patience but punished impatience with mouth-puckering astringency. Families in the Midwest and South knew to wait until after the first hard frost, when persimmons softened into orange globes of concentrated sweetness. The pulp was pushed through sieves to remove seeds and skin, creating a thick puree that gave the pudding its distinctive flavor, somewhere between dates and honey with hints of cinnamon. The batter was simple: persimmon pulp mixed with flour, sugar, eggs, butter, and spices, then baked until set and deeply caramelized. The texture was dense and sticky, almost like fudge, demanding to be eaten warm with hard sauce or whipped cream. Persimmon pudding appeared only at Christmas because that was when the fruit ripened. Families who knew good persimmon trees guarded them jealously. The dessert connected people to the land and seasons in ways modern cooking rarely does. Baked Alaska was the show-stopping dessert that proved a cook's mastery, its dome of meringue concealing ice cream that somehow survived a hot oven. The construction was engineering. Sponge cake base, firmly frozen ice cream shaped into a dome, then completely covered in meringue that was quickly browned in an extremely hot oven. The meringue insulated the ice cream, allowing the outside to turn golden while the inside stayed frozen. Slicing revealed the dramatic layers: brown meringue, white ice cream, golden cake. The presentation caused gasps around Christmas tables. Making Baked Alaska required precise timing and temperature control, with no room for error. Families reserved it for the most special occasions, when impressing guests was paramount. The dessert represented the era's love of dramatic presentations and technical challenges. Baked Alaska has largely vanished from home kitchens, surviving in occasional restaurant appearances where few remember its former holiday glory. Vegetable fried rice with leftover meat transformed scraps and day-old rice into a fragrant dinner in less than 15 minutes. Cold-cooked rice was the key, each grain separating as it hit the hot oil of a wide skillet or wok. Bits of carrot, peas, and diced onions followed, their colors brightening as they sizzled. Leftover meat, whether pork chops, chicken, or beef, was sliced thin and tossed in with a splash of soy sauce and a drizzle of sesame oil. A quick scramble of eggs in the corner of the pan finished the dish, binding everything together with soft ribbons. The result was smoky and savory, carrying the scent of garlic and ginger through the house. Families appreciated how it cleared the refrigerator of odds and ends while creating a meal that tasted planned and special. Served hot straight from the pan, it proved that yesterday's rice and scraps of meat could become a satisfying dinner that rivaled takeout, saving both time and money without sacrificing flavor or comfort. Egg nests were breakfast theater in 10 minutes flat. Egg whites were whipped into glossy clouds, shaped into little nests, and baked just long enough to firm before the yolks were added back in. The result was a dish that looked far fancier than it was, light, airy, and golden at the center. The joy of cooking described it as a dainty breakfast, perfect for brunches or special mornings. Housewives loved it because it turned a single egg into something spectacular. The contrast between the soft yolk and crisp-edged white made every bite feel delicate. Served with buttered toast or a slice of ham, it looked like something straight from a hotel breakfast tray. Children watched in awe as the nests puffed up in the oven. It was fast, pretty, and impossibly charming, the kind of forgotten magic that made morning feel like an occasion. Neck bones and rice stretched across Christmas tables in homes where ham was a luxury and turkey was a dream. The bony cuts simmered until their meat fell apart into savory shreds. Pork neck bones cost almost nothing because butchers considered them more bone than meat, but families knew better. Hours of simmering extracted every bit of flavor, the bones releasing gelatin that thickened the cooking liquid into rich gravy. The meat, though sparse, was deeply flavored and satisfying when spooned over mounds of rice that absorbed the pork-infused liquid. Some families added onions and garlic, others kept it simple with just salt and pepper. The dish required no special skills, only patience and a heavy pot that could withstand hours on the stove. Children learned to pick around bones, finding every tender morsel hidden in the joints. Neck bones and rice represented survival cooking at its most practical, turning what others discarded into Christmas dinner. Chestnut stuffing was the old-fashioned filling that connected American Christmas to European traditions, its sweet nuttiness complementing roast poultry perfectly. Fresh chestnuts were scored, roasted until the shells split, then peeled. A labor-intensive process that took hours but yielded incomparable flavor. The peeled chestnuts were crumbled and mixed with bread cubes, sausage, onions, and herbs, the mixture moistened with stock. The texture was substantial, the chestnuts adding richness that dried bread alone couldn't provide. Families with European heritage maintained this tradition, passing down techniques for the temperamental nuts. Fresh chestnuts were available only seasonally, sold by street vendors who knew their customers waited all year. This stuffing has nearly disappeared, replaced by packaged versions that can't match the original. The labor required, and the disappearance of fresh chestnut vendors, ended a tradition that once defined Christmas flavor. Macaroni with butter and black pepper offered pure comfort with almost no effort, turning a handful of pantry staples into a bowl of creamy warmth. Elbow macaroni boiled quickly in salted water while butter melted in a waiting pot. The drained pasta was tossed directly into the melted butter, and a heavy shower of freshly ground black pepper coated each piece, releasing a fragrant spice that filled the room. A small scoop of grated Parmesan, if available, added a gentle richness, but even without it, the dish delivered deep satisfaction. Ready in less than 15 minutes, it soothed the end of a long day with its silky texture and simple flavor. Children loved the mild, buttery taste, while adults appreciated the subtle heat of the pepper and the reminder that good food does not always demand a complex recipe. This humble meal has endured for generations because it proves that speed, thrift, and pleasure can happily share the same pot when hunger calls for something immediate and comforting. Eggs a la goldenrod was one of those quietly elegant dishes that proved how far a single egg could go. Hard-boiled eggs were chopped into a creamy white sauce made from butter, flour, and milk, seasoned just enough to feel comforting without being heavy. The golden yolks were pressed through a sieve and sprinkled on top like sunshine. It was ladled generously over buttered toast, warm and simple, but it felt refined enough to serve guests. Housewives swore by it for its thrift and speed, 10 minutes from pan to plate. The recipe appeared in early editions of The Joy of Cooking as a way to turn breakfast into something special without fuss or waste. It was food for busy mornings, for children before school, or for quiet dinners when money was tight. Even with such basic ingredients, it had an air of ceremony, a touch of care. The smell of warm milk and butter filled the kitchen like a soft promise. It was a reminder that nourishment could be beautiful when made with love and patience. Cornmeal. Crusted catfish fillets brought the taste of a southern fish fry to the table in minutes, turning thin fillets into golden perfection. A simple dredge of cornmeal seasoned with salt, pepper, and a hint of cayenne coated the fish, while oil heated in a cast-iron skillet. As soon as the fillets touched the pan, they sizzled and released a savory aroma that promised a feast. In only a few minutes, each side crisped to a deep golden brown, while the flesh stayed tender and flaky. Remember those working man's dinners you could make in just 10 minutes after a long day on the line? These dinners filled mid-century kitchens with quick heat, heavy plates, and the smell of hard work turning into comfort. What did those rushed but satisfying nights give us that slower meals never could? Mock crab salad was a dish that smiled through hard times, a clever illusion born from creativity. The Joy of Cooking included it as a quick fish substitute, though no crab ever swam near it. Chopped eggs, celery, and a bit of onion were folded into mayonnaise seasoned with paprika and vinegar. The flavor, surprisingly, came close, fresh, tangy, and satisfying on crackers or bread. It was a dish made by those who knew how to stretch the truth and a dollar at the same time. Served chilled in lettuce cups or on toast, it was both playful and practical. Housewives praised it for taste and speed. Children loved it because they believed the name. It was the taste of make-do magic, proving once again that imitation could be its own kind of art. Stuffed celery sticks were the simple appetizer that appeared on relish trays and party platters, their crisp channels filled with cream cheese, pimiento cheese, or savory spreads. Celery was cut into uniform lengths, the natural groove providing perfect vessels for fillings. Cream cheese mixed with olives, pimientos, or blue cheese was piped or spread into each stalk. The combination of crisp, watery celery with rich, creamy filling satisfied guests before heavier courses arrived. Children especially loved stuffed celery, the vegetable made appealing by its creamy cargo. Making them required patience. Each stalk needed individual attention. Some hostesses topped their stuffed celery with paprika or chopped nuts for color and texture. The dish represented the era's attention to appetizer presentation, when even simple vegetables were dressed up for company. Stuffed celery has largely disappeared from holiday tables, replaced by hummus and crudités that feel more modern. Fried pies appeared on Christmas tables as portable desserts that stretched fruit preserves into something special. the half-moon pastries filled with whatever jam or dried fruit the pantry held. Pie dough was rolled thin and cut into circles, spoonfuls of filling placed on one side before the dough was folded, and edges crimped tight with fork tines to seal in the sweetness. The pies were fried in hot fat until golden and crispy, the filling bubbling inside while the crust shattered with each bite. Apple, peach, and berry were common fillings, made from fruit preserved during summer harvest when orchards and bushes overflowed with abundance. The pies could be eaten by hand, making them perfect for children and for taking to church gatherings where plates were scarce. Fried pies represented the genius of transforming pantry staples into festive treats, each one a small celebration wrapped in flaky pastry. The technique allowed families to serve individual desserts that looked impressive. Which vintage dinner takes you back to simpler times? Share your memories in the comments below and tell us what kept you fed through quiet evenings. Hit like and subscribe for more forgotten flavors worth remembering.